At dinner, my daughter-in-law leaned over the candles and said, "Don't sit next to me." I smiled and sat next to the lawyer. But then he clicked open a leather briefcase, the snap loud as a gavel, and slid a manila folder across the linen like it might burn. My son, Daniel, stared into his wine. Kayla's lipstick curved into a satisfied smirk as the rosemary chicken steamed between us. The house smelled of lemon polish and garlic, but the air tasted metallic. The lawyer's cufflinks caught the chandelier light when he murmured, "Mrs. Harris, if you'll sign where the flags are." Post-it notes glowed like warning flares. Durable power of attorney, healthcare proxy, my name in bold, Kayla's name right beneath mine. "So we can finally get you settled," she purred, tapping her acrylic nail on the signature line, Pinot swirling in her glass. My palms went damp. The fork in my hand felt suddenly heavy, my heart keeping time with the ice clinking in the water pitcher. Outside, a sprinkler hissed against the June dusk. Inside, the room closed in, and the lawyer's polite smile never reached his eyes. "It's standard," he said, velvet soft, as if I were a child needing permission. Then came the second envelope. Thin, crisp, lethal. A quitclaim deed transferring my little Cape Cod to Daniel for estate simplification. My house, the one I'd painted myself after my husband died, reduced to a line item on their to-do list. Daniel cleared his throat without looking at me. "It's for your own good, Mom," he said, the words careful, rehearsed. Kayla's perfume, vanilla and victory, washed over me as she nudged the pen closer. The silverware chimed, and I realized this wasn't a family dinner. It was an ambush. I'll tell you how we got to this table. How casseroles and babysitting turned into passwords and paperwork. How grief can make you sign things you don't understand. And how a polite smile can be sharper than any knife. If you believe respect shouldn't have an expiration date, subscribe to follow stories like this. My name is Margaret Harris, 68 years old, mother of one son, and keeper of a small house whose walls hold more of my life than any file ever could. At that dinner table, when Kayla leaned over the candles and told me not to sit next to her, I did what I've done for most of my life when faced with a sharpened tone or a chilly glance. I smiled and found another chair. The lawyer clicked open his briefcase and laid out the pages as if they were placemats at a holiday meal, and the world I have tended carefully since my husband died folded up into neat, dangerous stacks. "Just where the flags are," he said, voice smooth as the linen. Kayla, with her fixed smile and perfect nails, watched me as if I were already halfway gone. Daniel stared into his wine. I could hear the sprinkler hissing in the twilight like a snake in the hedges, and I thought of my basil plants at home, how they drink from the drip line and smell like summer on my hands. When the quitclaim deed appeared, a thin breath of paper that dared to reduce my house to a transaction, a thought rose up stubborn and clear. Not tonight. My hand, the same hand that held an infant Daniel through croup and fever and first day of school jitters, felt steady, even as the fork trembled in it. I set the fork down. I looked at the post-its, durable power of attorney, healthcare proxy, and then at the small gold cross Daniel gave me when he was 7, catching the chandelier light against my blouse. I lifted my eyes to the lawyer and then to Kayla. "Thank you," I said evenly, as my mother taught me to say to salesmen who knocked on our door when I was a girl. "I don't sign things without reading them on my own time. Please leave me the copies. I'll consider them and follow up with my lawyer." Kayla set her glass down. It was a small thud, full of impatience. "Margaret, we talked about this," she murmured, the way a teacher might speak to a child who won't color within the lines. "It's for your own good." "That may be," I replied, "but my own good has always started with my own 2 eyes and a quiet morning." The lawyer's smile did not waver. He tapped the folder with a silver pen. "Of course, Mrs. Harris. We encourage everyone to be comfortable. These are standard. We'll leave them with you." Daniel's throat moved, as if the words caught their hurt to swallow. He didn't look at me. His rosemary chicken was cooling, steam fading to ghost. I wanted to touch his sleeve, to tip his chin up like I did when he was 10 and came home with a scraped knee and a pride hurt worse than skin. But I kept my hands folded in my lap. I had learned, in the 2 years since my husband Robert passed, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a grown child is to let the silence sit between you until he hears himself. We ate, or they ate, and I moved food around my plate. The candles drooped. Through the window, the streetlights along their cul-de-sac hummed on, turning the June evening a soft, domestic gold. When I gathered my purse and the manila folder, Kayla hugged me without letting her body touch mine. Her perfume lifted like confetti as she stepped back. "Don't drive in the dark, okay?" she said, sweet as a warning. "I know the way," I told her, and felt something old and firm settle in my chest. The driveway gravel crunched under my shoes like a familiar hymn. I could hear someone's television through a window down the street, the Yankees playing the Red Sox, and I remembered Robert, how he'd holler at the radio like the players could hear him from our living room. At home, the porch light clicked on when I opened the screen door. My house smelled like Murphy oil soap and tomato plants, and the faint, dependable dust of books. The kitchen clock I found at a yard sale in Wellesley years ago ticked steadily. The small lamp on the counter, the one with the shade lily painted, all orange and violet swirls, made a warm pool around the sink. I put the folder on the table, right on top of the placemat, embroidered with blueberries that my friend Diane brought back from Maine, and I took off my shoes. There is nothing so honest as the sound of your own feet on your own floor. I rinsed my wine glass and set it upside down on a dish towel. The habit of clearing my place is muscle memory from decades of supper and dishes, homework and television, bedtime and quiet. The quiet is fuller now, thick with the echoes of laughter and all the tender inconveniences of family that I sometimes still reach for in the night. The dog's tags jingling as he turned circles in his sleep. Robert lifting the newspaper with a fussy rustle, Daniel clattering in the kitchen at midnight on summers home from college. Growing up in Worcester, my mother kept our house with a competence that could have calmed hurricanes. She taught me that you honor your home with care and your name with integrity. My father worked second shift at the mill and left pennies lined up on the counter as if to say, "We're making it." When I met Robert at a church picnic, he brought coleslaw, I brought deviled eggs. We danced on a patch of lawn to a radio someone had propped on a cooler, and I thought, I know this man. He worked as a mail carrier for 32 years, bringing home sore feet and stories, bringing home kindness like it was a bag of groceries. We bought our house, a small 2-bedroom Cape in Needham, when Daniel was 5. The saying goes that a Cape Cod can look like a toy house, with its dormer windows and steep roof. But to me, it has always looked like a promise kept. We painted it the summer Daniel learned to ride a bike. Creamy white with green shutters that I rigged up with Robert and a set of ladders borrowed from our neighbor, Mr. Carter. When Robert died, quietly, in his chair under the Afghan I crocheted while he watched the Patriots, that house felt like a boat I suddenly had to steer alone. So I painted the living room myself, a soft yellow, because light always found us in that room, and I wanted to invite it to keep doing so. I learned how to unclog the sink from a video on the library computer and how to reset a tripped breaker from Frank across the street, who will never let me return a tool without coming over to install the thing himself. I did what women like me do. I kept moving. I signed the forms the funeral home gave me, while my eyes stung and my mind floated inches above the surface of my life. I canceled the newspaper and cried when the woman on the phone said she was sorry for my loss. I put Robert's socks, all neatly rolled in the drawer, into a donation bag with hands that shook. When one of the grandkids left a Lego under the couch, I stepped on it barefoot and cried again. Because pain has a way of finding the small corners you think you've swept clean. I discovered the rhythms of living alone. The chatter of NPR in the mornings, the rustle of the maple leaves outside my bedroom window, the way the house breathes in summer and tightens in winter. In those early months, Kayla came by with casseroles, glistening under foil, and talk about streamlining the paperwork. She is organized to the point of art, spreadsheets, calendars, the apps on her twin phones lined up like troops on parade. She works in marketing and can make a room hush with the right turn of a phrase. She sat at my table with that bright smile and said, "We'll set up auto pay, Margaret. It's easier. Let me have your passwords. I'll make sure you don't miss anything." She told me about HIPAA and how it would help doctors talk to Daniel in an emergency. She showed me a site where you can store all your documents in the cloud, and I thought of the little metal fireproof box in my closet where we keep our marriage certificate and Daniel's first lock of hair, and I agreed to the cloud because everyone seemed to be living up there now anyway. I signed. I signed a lot. The bank had me add Daniel to my checking with a smile and a pen saying, "It'll be helpful, honey, if you're ever in the hospital." He came with me. He held my elbow even when the floor was flat. Kayla was efficient, kind in a way that felt like a bordered thing, tidy and manageable. She suggested we clear out my second bedroom down to the studs for a future project. One Saturday, with Daniel hauling boxes and Kayla with her label maker, we sent the past tumbling into donation bags and recycling bins. I kept my wedding dress, the bridal leather belt Robert wore on Sundays, a shoebox of notes Daniel scribbled as a boy. "Love you, Mom, back at 9D. But I let go of 5 slow cookers and the old desktop computer and the lamp with the scalloped edge and the stack of VHS tapes no one would watch again. There was relief in the clearing, and also an ache, a quiet voice that asked, what is left if I let go of the things that witnessed it? It was easier to say yes to Kayla when the alternative was a day alone with decisions I didn't ask for. And it was not all give and no take. I had the children, Lily and Matthew, after school, the way my mother had me and my sister at my grandmother's kitchen table while she ironed. I taught Lily to knit last fall, the way my grandmother taught me, though Lily's stitches had a mind of their own. We made Lego castles on Tuesday afternoons and baked apples on chilly days. I brought lemon squares to the PTA bake sale and clapped at the winter concert so hard my palms stung. If a life is made rich by the small tasks you choose willingly, then I am wealthy indeed. But Kayla's kindness had those edges. You can live a long time and still be stunned by how soft a sentence can be and still carry a barb. "Honey, we don't drive after dark anymore," she said one evening, dropping the car keys into a ceramic bowl that was not hers to designate. "Just text me when you plan to go somewhere longer than the library," she said, as if my plans could be posted like a week's menu on the fridge. At Thanksgiving, she took the salt from my hand and replaced it with a jar of something labeled sodium-free. "We're watching your blood pressure," she announced, as if my body were a project she'd taken on. In front of her friends, she would say, "This is Margaret, my mother-in-law. She's independent but sometimes forgets things." The first time, I laughed it off. The third, my face burned. The fifth, I said gently, "Kayla, please don't introduce me with a but." There were missteps. I put the electric bill in the water bill envelope once and drove it to the post office with a rueful laugh. I wore odd socks to church without noticing. I started a sentence and partway in realized I had no idea where it was aiming. My doctor adjusted my thyroid medication and we both blamed winter. There is a difference between forgetting your keys and being told with a smile you could skate on that you are no longer the person who can be trusted with them. I am old enough to know that difference when it sits down across from me at dinner. Daniel changed in ways I have been slow to accept. He is a good man, the kind who mows Mrs. Carter's lawn when he does ours and brings back extra donuts from Dunkin' for Frank's grandkids on Saturday mornings. He works too hard. He worries too much. He and Kayla bought a house that makes him stay at work to fill it. The down payment came partly from money Robert and I saved in small ways for big years. Coupon clipping, camping vacations instead of flights, painted walls instead of contractors. We wrote him a check we could afford, because that is what parents do. We slide the cup toward the child when the pitcher is almost empty, and we hope they will pass it on when it is their turn. He thanked me and then went upstairs to talk to Kayla for a long time in a room made of whispers. After dinner at their house, with the papers left to me like leftovers I didn't ask to pack, I sat at my kitchen table and made tea. Rooibos, because it doesn't keep you up. The steam curled, and a drop ran down the side and left a little comet on the saucer. I opened the folder once, twice, and then shut it again. The pages were patient. The kitchen clock murmured on. I thought of Robert's handwriting, steady and a little slanted, and how he would have written notes in the margins, underlining, asking questions. He once spent 3 evenings figuring out the best way to refinance our mortgage for $500 less in fees. He would have lifted his glasses and said, "Mags, we don't do this without our own counsel." We had have a friend, Lila Kim, who lives 3 doors down. She taught history at the high school for 30 years and can quote Supreme Court decisions the way some people quote hymns. Her daughter went to school with Daniel. They built a treehouse together that lasted a decade longer than anyone expected. Lila retired the same spring Robert's knees finally gave out on the ladder. She started volunteering at the library with me and joined my Friday morning walking group. Last winter, after her sister's husband fell and they had to navigate a pile of confusing forms, she took a class on elder law basics at the community college. She invited me to go. I stayed home and mended a shirt. I washed my teacup and placed it upside down by the sink. I wiped the table, a pointless ritual maybe since no crumbs dared gather after a dinner I barely ate. I slid the folder into the drawer where I keep the birthday candles and the Scotch tape. Then I opened the cupboard, took down Robert's old Red Sox mug, the one with the chip on the rim, and slipped our safe deposit key into it, under the tea bags. Then I placed my hand flat on the table as if to swear an oath. In the morning, my house woke up with me. That is one of the beautiful things about a home. It permits you to have rituals simply because they are yours. I fed the birds and watched a cardinal bully the sparrows while a squirrel scolded us all from the fence. I turned on the radio. A woman's voice sang standards from the 60s. The sun slid across the kitchen floor and licked at the toes of the chairs. I made myself oatmeal with brown sugar and chopped apples. The apples were a little soft. I cooked them down and made a note to buy more at Roche Bros when I went for milk. I took a shower with the curtain open a sliver so the room wouldn't steam up too much, because I don't like the mirror to fog. I put on my soft blue sweater and the necklace Robert gave me for our 25th anniversary, tiny pearls on a thin chain, modest enough to wear to the library. Then I took the folder back out and read. The words were as plain as a clapboard house. This person may make decisions for you. This property is transferred. There is always a gloss of gentle language in those documents, but it is the verbs that matter. I read the verbs. I made notes in the margins. I circled Kayla's name where it sat, snug under mine. I looked for Daniel's eyes where they had not met mine last night and saw instead the absence, the way silence leaves a shape. On my short list, I wrote, call Lila, find elder law attorney, bank, doctor. I wrote in block letters, you are not confused. You are sad. There is a difference. I walked to the library and spoke to Cheryl at the main desk. She wears colorful scarves and has a son in the Coast Guard. She slid me a paper with phone numbers for legal aid and smiled without pity when I told her I needed to talk to someone who could put fear and law in the same sentence and sort them out. On the community board was a flyer for a talk at St. Luke's, protecting your assets and your wishes. I folded the tab with my thumb and tore it off. On the way home, I bought a bouquet of daisies because I'm someone who buys flowers for my own table. It is a small way of telling yourself that you are worth the beauty. When I called Lila, she said, come over. And then, because she knows me, or I'll come to you. She came to me. She sat at the table with her reading glasses on the end of her nose and her hair in a bun that always looks seconds from falling elegantly apart. She read the papers, slowly. She tapped the signature flags with one finger. They're trying to move the chess pieces, she said. Maybe not with ill intent, but intent isn't the only thing that matters. Position does. I don't want to fight, I said. I want to be fair. I want to be wise, and I want to keep my house until I choose not to. You can be all those things, Lila said, like a teacher telling a student that the test is hard, but the mind is ready. But you need someone who works for you, not for them. I know a woman. Her name is Patricia Nolan. Elder Law. Her office is in Newton Center. She's the one who taught my class. Will you go? I nodded. I will. We made the appointment for Thursday. When I hung up, I looked around my kitchen as if it were curious about me. On the windowsill are the small treasures of an ordinary life. A stone shaped like a heart that Lily found at Lake Cockatuate last summer. A marble that Matthew slipped into my palm like it was a diamond. The tiny shell Robert brought me from a walk on a rainy day at Crane Beach when the summer people had gone home and the sea was ours. I thought about how a home becomes not property, but a character in your story, and how wrong it would be to cross it out with a line like the ones the lawyer drew with his finger. They texted that afternoon. "Kayla, how are you feeling? We can pick you up for the appointment with Dr. Levin next week." Daniel, "Love you, Mom. Let me know if you want to go over the forms." I typed slowly. I said thank you. I said I was fine. I said I would let them know. I didn't say that I was going to see a lawyer of my own. I didn't say that a plan, gentle, firm, and made of the same stuff as my bones, was taking shape like a scaffold around my heart. That evening, I took a lasagna out of the freezer, one of the ones I made in January when the house felt too quiet. While it baked, I pulled out the photo albums. Not to drown in the past, but to remember the lines that led me here. Here was Daniel, age 6, holding a worm as if it were a jewel. Here was Kayla, the day they announced their engagement, cheeks flushed and eyes shining, Robert behind them with his arm around my shoulder. Here were the two of us on our 30th anniversary, a cake made by Diane with strawberries like scattered stars, the backyard strung with lights, July mosquitoes humming as if they were part of the orchestra. Here was my mother, standing in her kitchen with a rolling pin and a look that dared anyone to tell her she couldn't do what she knew very well she could. When you are a woman who has lived into the thick of your 60s, the world begins to talk to you as if your life were stepping out of the room. I am not stepping out. I brought casseroles and babysat and built a routine that made space for other people's growing and doing. I skipped getting my piano tuned for 3 years so I could help Daniel with his car repair. I took a job in the school cafeteria when his braces were due because, as my father used to say, teeth are for life. I sat on hard bleachers and clapped for the kid whose parents couldn't come because every child in a gym deserves hands raised for them. I shimmied my way into the crawl space when the dryer stopped and pulled out a lint compacted like lunch meat. I volunteered at the church rummage sale and wrapped knickknacks with old issue of the Globe. I learned to make clam chowder the way Robert's mother did, thick and peppery, and I kept making it after she died because the taste made him close his eyes and say, "That's home." These are not just the tasks of a life. They are the scaffolding upon which love lifts itself from a thing you say to a thing you do. And in that scaffolding is a strength that has nothing to do with youth and everything to do with duty. I have a duty to myself, too. It took me longer than I am proud to admit to say the words out loud in my kitchen. I deserve to be consulted about me. On Thursday, I put on my good black pants, the ones that don't bag at the knees, and a white blouse with a tiny row of pleats that always makes me stand straighter. I took the bus to Newton Center because I like the feeling of watching the streets unspool and thinking about all the stories happening in the buildings we pass. I arrived 10 minutes early. Patricia's office smelled like tea and printer ink. She had a fern on a stand and diplomas lined up like friendly faces. She listened. That is the thing, the first thing. She listened without interrupting. She asked a few questions, not to catch me, but to understand. She explained, in plain English, what a durable power of attorney is, and what a healthcare proxy does, and what a quitclaim deed could mean now and later. She told me that I had a right to choose who would hold those responsibilities if I wanted anyone at all. She said I could choose co-agents and how I might set limits. She asked me about my bank accounts, my will, my wishes, not as boxes to check, but as a map to draw. "Do I have to include them?" I asked. It felt disloyal to use them as pronouns in a room where legal terms sat heavy. "You don't have to do anything that doesn't align with your wishes," she said. "You can involve them in ways that make sense, or not at all. The law is a tool. It should not be a cudgel." I cried a little. Not because I was afraid anymore, but because being seen properly is a kind of relief that knocks softly and then floods you. She passed me a tissue and said the word dignity. It hung there between us like a sturdy hook to hang your coat on in a storm. We made a plan. Not a secret plan so much as a private one. We would draft my own power of attorney and healthcare proxy, naming Lila and my sister Ruth as co-agents. Daniel would have access to information if I chose, but no one would move anything without my nod. We would place the house in a trust that respected my wish to live there as long as I am able, with clear protections so that no one could crowd me toward a decision with a pen at a dinner table. We would talk about a living will. We would have a conversation with my doctor, on my terms, with my words. When I left, I sat on a bench outside the office and watched a man walk by with a bag from Johnny's luncheonette. He smelled like pancakes and syrup, and suddenly I was in our old kitchen with Daniel, flipping flapjacks on a griddle, while the radio hissed the forecast and Robert tuned his fishing line. "A good pancake is about the first flip," Robert would say, and I thought of how we teach one another these small rituals that become courage later. The first flip of standing up for myself had been done. It was not the last. I called Daniel. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart," I said. "I met with a lawyer today. I'm working on my own documents." Silence. I could hear his breath. I could hear traffic. "Okay," he said carefully. "Kayla will want—" "I know what Kayla will want," I said, not unkindly. "And I know what I want. I'm choosing who will act for me if I need them. I want you to know I'm doing it. I'll share what I'm comfortable sharing when it's done. Mom, we're just trying to help." "I know," I said. "I believe you are. Help sometimes looks like listening. Sometimes it looks like waiting. Sometimes it is remembering who taught you to tie your shoes and knowing she still knows how to tie her own." He huffed a soft laugh through his nose. "You always tie your shoes too tight," he said without thinking. "That's because I walk quickly," I said, "and I have things to do." He promised to come by on Saturday with the kids. After we hung up, I stood there and let the sun warm my face. And I thought about how love is a mariner's thing as much as a mother's. A matter of reading not only the map, but the weather, the tides, the shape of the shore you cannot always see. Kayla is not my enemy, even if she is my antagonist in this story. Those can be different things. I can disagree with her without making her a monster, but I will not let her make of me a child. On Saturday, Lily pulled me into a full-bodied hug that smelled like bubblegum shampoo and crayons. Matthew ran his toy truck along my kitchen table with a whispering broom. Daniel stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, a boy again for a second, all legs and hope. Kayla came later, with a pie from a bakery in Jamaica Plain and that smile perched on her lips. She looked around, appraising as ever. Her eyes landed on the folder on my counter. It was the one from Patricia's office, pale blue, not manila. She tilted her head. "Got a lot going on?" she asked. "I do," I said. She lifted the pie. "Blueberry," she said. "Organic." "Lovely," I replied. "Thank you." We ate on the porch. The neighborhood kids pedaled by in a cluster, their voices rising and falling like birdsong. Frank waved from his driveway and lifted a wrench like a toast. Lila came over with a container of pasta salad, stayed only long enough to hug Lily and squeeze my hand. The maple cast lacy shadows across the steps. Kayla cut the pie with confidence. I passed plates. The kids formed a stack of berry-streaked paper napkins, the wind lifting an edge now and then like a pulse. Kayla said, "We toured an assisted living in Brookline, just to get a sense of options." "You should always gather information," I said, and looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. There was a glint, a regathering. He cleared his throat and said, "Mom knows what she wants, Kayla." She turned to him, surprised. I saw in her face the moment when her hand met a door she expected to swing and felt it steady against its hinges. The air shifted. Matthew demanded more whipped cream, and the moment passed. But it had happened. I tucked it away. Morrissey would have said, "You take the openings the defense gives you." Robert would have said, "Mags, you win a game of chess one move at a time." That night, after they left, I washed the dishes and wrapped the extra pie. I watered the basil. Fireflies winked in the yard like someone had draped it with Christmas lights in June. I went to my bedroom and opened the top drawer of my dresser. Robert's watch lay there, the crystal scratched, hands stopped at 8:12. I touched it and thought about how we measure time. There is a clock for everything. grief, healing, aging, resolve. Some clocks are loud as a grandfather clock. Some whisper like the kitchen clock in the night. I am not naive. I know there will be more dinners and more papers and more conversations where Kayla's smile will sharpen. I know there will be days when my memory will slip and worry will walk in without knocking. I know Daniel will stand between us sometimes, trying to be a bridge without tumbling into the river. I know that the trust we are setting up will be more than a document. It will be a statement, a sturdy plank. I know that asserting boundaries in a family can feel like the opposite of love, even when it is the most loving thing you can do. There will be voicemails and sighs and the shuffling of calendars, and there will be, I hope, more pie on porches. But I also know this. Respect does not come with an expiration date. I have earned a place at every table where people talk about me. I have earned the right to be asked, not told, to be consulted, not handled. When my time comes to let go of keys, of certain tasks, of the small independence of a drive to the hardware store or the library on a Tuesday, I will know it. I may ask for help. I may cry over the letting go, but the asking will be mine. I lit a candle in the window that night, an old habit from winter storms when Robert was late and the streets were slick. A candle is a quiet thing, but it says enough. It says, someone is here. It says, we are waiting for the people we love to come home to themselves. In the morning, I brought a bouquet of daisies to the cemetery and knelt at Robert's stone. I'm taking care of it, love, I told him. I'm tending the home. I sat in the grass and told him about the lawyer's cufflinks and Kayla's pie and the way Daniel said, Mom knows what she wants. The breeze lifted the hair at my temple, kind as a hand. Across the lawn, a man in a Red Sox cap watered the hydrangeas at his wife's grave. The world is full of people doing what needs doing quietly. On the way home, I stopped at the farmer's market. I bought strawberries and rhubarb and a small jug of syrup from a woman whose hands smelled like earth. I ran into Diane, who told me her grandson had lost his first tooth. I promised to come to the library's summer reading kickoff and to bring oatmeal cookies. Back on my porch, I strung a new set of fairy lights around the handrail because if my house is a ship, then lights are a lighthouse for me, not for anyone else. Later that week, Kayla texted me an address and a time for a tour of another facility. I wrote back, thank you, I'm not available. I have an appointment. She wrote, with who? I wrote, someone who works for me. She sent a thumbs up. It felt like both a shrug and a truce. At the next dinner, there will always be next dinners. I will sit where I choose. If there is a lawyer, I will bring my own. If there are papers, they will be mine. If the candlelight makes the room glow and someone tells me where to sit, I will consider the candles, consider the table, consider the years that taught me to hold my own fork and pass the salt with a steady hand, and I will decide. The world may think that old women fade into the wallpaper, but I have a paintbrush and a can of yellow paint and a voice that can fill a room when it needs to. There is a big conflict coming. I can feel its shape like thunder in the distance on a humid afternoon when the sky is still blue and the birds are quiet. Kayla will push. She will marshal experts and terms and assurances. Daniel will pace the middle like a man counting steps in a hospital corridor. I will bring my papers and my ally and my name, and I will set them on the table alongside the dessert forks. I will remember every sacrifice not as a ledger of owed debts, but as a record of the strength I carry into the room. Then I will take a breath that smells like lemon and basil and printed ink and summer rain, and I will choose. The cheesecake is set in the refrigerator, the blueberries glossy on top like a promise to the grandkids. But I can't taste sweetness right now. My mind is busy, so busy, but my house is steady in a way my heart isn't. I water the basil on the sill and press a leaf between my fingers, wanting the comfort of that bold green scent. Home and garden, June afternoons, not paperwork and worry. Daylight puddles in the kitchen, and I move from counter to table to sink and back, the old yellow dish towel soft as memory. I am not a woman built for confrontation. I was taught to keep the peace, to slice the first piece of pie, and offer the biggest to the hungriest, to smooth tablecloths and tempers with the same patient gesture. But as my steps echo in the warm hush, I can feel the stacking of slights, a tower of them, wobbly and tall, all the small ways my voice has been shuffled quietly to the margins, as if reverence for age were a tradition only kept on greeting cards. It started in earnest the year after Robert died, though the seeds were sown long before. Kayla's habit of suggesting things, lightly steering with her smile, Daniel's nervous way of deferring to her when decisions floated between us. That first Thanksgiving, still sharp in my mind, Kayla carves the turkey without asking, smiling at me over the bird as if delegating a difficult job to one of the junior staff at her office. I stand at the sideboard with the gravy boat warming in my hands and swallow a splinter of pride when she announces, "Margaret makes the best gravy, but I'm watching her sodium now." Daniel grins sheepishly and taps his fork. No one stands up for me. Small things mount, a gentle confiscation of the spare key to my house, just in case you get locked out. A gentle but permanent seat taken at the head of the table at birthdays, recipes revised without my knowing. "We'll use almond milk for you. I read it's better for women your age." I am named always, but as if in passing. Margaret, my mother-in-law, she's independent but sometimes forgets things. But started baking at 4 p.m., but gets tired easily. But Daniel is kind, truly. He texts pictures of the kids needing stitches or proudly landing bike jumps. He mows my lawn, sometimes unasked, but always he is pressed by time, apologizing, checking his phone. "Kayla's got a meeting," he'll say, or "We need to rush because soccer." When I offer to babysit Lily and Matthew, there's a briefing, rules, schedules, emergency numbers, as if I haven't been doing this dance since before car seats had chest clips. Humiliations accumulate. When Kayla sets me up with online banking and leaves me a typed list of passwords, she eliminates my old spiral notebook, the one with frayed edges and Robert's notations in the margin. When I misplace the new grocery app on my phone, she sighs, "We'll do Instacart together, it's easier," and does not hand my phone back. Instead, she syncs my calendar with theirs. At Christmas, she gifts me an Alexa. "It'll help remind you about appointments, Margaret." "You just have to say her name," Kayla chirps, commanding the thing to play Bing Crosby and smiling at Daniel, who stands in the kitchen carrying a bottle of Riesling they bought because it pairs well with Mom's potato latkes, even though I haven't made latkes in years. Dinners at their house become a routine, a slow slide of comfort into protocol. I am always offered half a glass of wine, never a full one. I am never asked if I want to bring a dish. The place cards are handwritten in Kayla's looping script, and my seat is always the one that makes me rise to serve or clear away. When I grip a casserole dish with hands more certain than 30 years ago, Kayla clucks behind me. "Let me do that, Margaret, that's hot." My body betrays me to their eyes. I lose my train of thought once at the doctor. Kayla fills in my symptoms with brisk efficiency. When my blood pressure rises, Daniel's are the eyes that flicker with worry, soft and blue as his father's, but he loses the thread of my authority to Kayla's checklists and the pharmacist's warnings. "Just until the meds work out, Mom," he says, when Kayla asks for my pill organizer. It's never a question. When Robert's Red Sox mug chips, Kayla offers to throw it out, but I cling to it the way I do a mantle. This is not just a cup. This is history that fits in my hand. She relents, but notes, "We'll get you a new set at Target, one with big handles so it's easier to grip." Soon, I notice, as if in a slow migration, that my kitchen accoutrements are quietly swapped for easy open jars, insulated mugs, utensils designed for senior hands. A subtle kindness, but with every replacement is a silent message. You can't quite do for yourself anymore, not really. Through all this, I smile. I accept help, grateful sometimes, gritting my teeth others. I allow myself a muttered word behind closed doors, but never let it surface in front of Daniel or the kids. I remember my own mother, sitting with hands on her lap as relatives talked across her at the holidays, nodding, smiling, shrinking in plain sight. I remember my silent promise, made in those kitchen shadows, to never let someone make me small. And yet here, in this very house, piece by piece I am made smaller. By love, perhaps, but also by presumption. By worry, yes, but also by disregard. Now these papers sit before me. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, quitclaim deed. My name and Kayla's. Twins on a list, but only one is the original. My house, my memory, my future. To be simplified, settled. Just a signature required. The weight of all their for your own goods presses against my chest. After the dinner ambush, the embarrassment stings more than the garlic or the wine, sharper than Kayla's acrylic nail tapping the signature line. But it is the children I ache for. The idea that soon, decisions about their grandmother will be made not with her, but for her. That they will learn in small, ordinary ways that age can erase authority, and that the gentle routines of love can be reshaped by policy and precaution. At breakfast the next morning, my spoon clatters against my mug and I freeze. Was I always this clumsy? Later, at the pharmacy, Kayla calls to check in. Her voice is sweet, brisk. "Don't forget to get the right dosage," she says, before I can even thank the pharmacist for her kind patience. I buy daisies for myself, gripping the stems tightly to remind myself that my hands are firm, capable, made strong by decades of baking and tending and holding back tears. I reach, almost without thinking, for the small gold cross Daniel gave me when he was a boy. I keep it tucked in a drawer, but today I slip it into my pocket. A talisman. It is light, but warm against my palm, a reminder of the voice I once had, and the love I taught my son when I showed him how to sign his own name, write his own thank you notes, make his own way to the bus stop on breezy September mornings. This cross becomes my symbol now, not just of faith, but of something stubborn, a promise to myself that I will be seen. That evening, I ask Lila back to my house. I make us tea and we sit in the hush, old friends sharing silence as easily as words. I confess, voice soft, "It isn't about the papers, Lila. It's about being erased." She nods, her eyes sharp and gentle at once. "It's not just dignity, Margaret. It's your story. Your story belongs to you. Don't let anyone revise it without your say." Something clicks inside me, so much so that for a moment my resolve is a physical thing, heavy, certain, like the cross in my pocket. It is more than not tonight. It is never again. I decide with a clarity that sweeps my doubts into neat stacks that this will end, loudly if needed, no longer a quiet retreat, no more papered-over permission slips for my own life. I draft my plan that night as a letter, not addressed to Daniel or Kayla, but to myself, a declaration. I will meet again with Patricia the lawyer, but this time with every intention to sign and to bring the appropriate people in. I will not do it quietly or out of the room. I will do it in the light, at the table. There will be no more silent acceptance. I decide there will be a reckoning, and I write it all down, feeling my hand steady as I press the pen, my pen, not Kayla's, into the lined paper I favor. The morning of the dinner comes again, faster than the summer thunderstorms roll over the Charles. Kayla invites me, as if the distance from invitation to expectation were a sliver. Daniel is tight-lipped, worried, texts growing longer and vaguer as the evening approaches. I bring the blue folder from Patricia's office. I slip the gold cross around my neck, tucking it inside my blouse. I button my jacket, choose a bright scarf, red, because even subtle women can need sharp colors. The sun is loud and hot, scattering the street with glints off windshields. I walk into their house on time. The smell of rosemary chicken, lemon polish, vanilla perfume. Daniel's sleeves are rolled a quarter way. Kayla's bracelets clink. Matthew and Lily shout from upstairs. Lila's voice comes from the doorway. She's agreed to witness the moment. I have marshaled my facts and my papers, but my strength comes from the faces etched in memory and from a symbol, my cross, my own name, my own pen. We sit. This time, I sit where I like. Kayla raises an eyebrow but says nothing. The meal is pleasant but brittle, conversations skipping between the kids, summer camp, errands. The blue folder sits at my place, a quiet sentinel. After dinner, Before Kayla can gesture for coffee or segue into her agenda, I stand. My heart pounds, a hard, loud drum, but my hands do not tremble. I open the folder, eyes on both of them, my voice steady, even a little loud. I have something to share first. Kayla's expression is careful, practiced. Daniel's mouth pulls tight. Lila folds her hands. I've met with my lawyer, I begin, and these are the new power of attorney and healthcare proxy documents with my appointments. I'm not signing anything tonight, but making my wishes clear to you, since these concern my future, my home, my well-being. Silence. The room tightens. I see Daniel's throat jump. Kayla starts to speak, but I raise my hand, fingernails clean, fingers steady. Let me finish, please. I take the gold cross from my neck and set it on the tablecloth, near the folder. A glint in the chandelier's soft light. My voice wavers on the edge of tears, but I don't break. This was a gift from my son when he was small. It has meaning, like this house, like my name. Both shall stay with me. I am not confused. I am not lost. I am not ready to be settled, handled, or signed away. Kayla's face flushes, offended and startled, a moment of rawness rarely seen in her. Margaret, that's not fair. It is fair, I answer immediately, voice sharper than I intend, but honest. You have handled this the way you would handle a client or a case, but I am not a client. I am your mother-in-law. That grants me more than a posting on your spreadsheet. I am not sidestepped. I am consulted, or I am nothing to you. You decide. Daniel leans forward. He is older, more tired than I remember, but behind his gaze I see the boy who brought me dandelions, and later, car troubles. Mom, we only want what's best. I will decide what's best, I say, choking back emotion. For as long as I am able, I am not alone, and not without resources, and not without memory. For a moment, the room ripples. Kayla gathers herself, voice cool. We'll need to talk about... You can email me, I reply, closing the folder, after you've thought about what respect looks like. Daniel's shoulders slump. Kayla narrows her eyes but holds her tongue. Lila's presence beside me is a lifeline, her hand closing around mine, grounding me. The kids burst in, breaking the tension as only children can. I gather them, help with dessert, move among cups and saucers and plates, my cross warm once more against my skin. The air in the room has thinned, but I can breathe, deep, grateful, not invisible. After, in the privacy of my own car, I rest my head against the steering wheel and let the tears fall. Not because I was cruel, but because it is hard, so hard, to insist on your own place in the world when the world would rather carve you a smaller one. But I did it. And in doing so, with memory, wit, the counsel of friends, and the small gold cross Daniel gave me long ago, I reclaimed my seat. We will have more battles. Kayla will marshal her options. Daniel will walk the bridge between peace and perfidy. But I have made my stand, and now the table is level again, my voice a sturdy utensil, not just another place card. If they want to rewrite the next chapter, they will need to invite me to the table as an equal, not a bystander. And if not, I have my own home, my own story, and the strength to defend both for as long as breath and memory serve. Let the next dinner come. I'll be there, sitting, by choice, not by permission, exactly where I want. As I watched Lila's taillights fade into the midsummer dusk, the tangled knots in my chest began to loosen, like a curtain gently parting to let the evening in. I sat in the quiet hush of my car, hands resting loosely on the wheel, my little gold cross warm and weighty beneath my blouse. Ahead, the road led through tunneled maples, back past the sleepy houses and clipped lawns of Needham, and finally to my home, the place that waited for my footsteps and my laughter. And now, I realized, for my restored sense of self. Across the dashboard, I caught my reflection in the glass, my hair silvered at the temples, my eyes bright with the sheen of tears I neither welcomed nor regretted. Tonight, I had spoken my truth, not with anger, but with a clarity honed over nearly 7 decades of choosing when to rise, when to yield, and when to reclaim what is mine. If strength has a sound, it is not a shout, but the steady murmur of conviction in an ordinary room. If dignity has a face, it is this: a woman who refuses to vanish, even when the world nudges her gently to the edge. I drove home through the hush of leafy streets, the air thick with peony and lilac from neighbors' yards, still lush in June. Porch lights flickered on, one by one, a constellation of small beacons, each a testimony that someone, somewhere, still tended the heart of things that matter. When I turned into my own driveway, the porch light I'd left burning beckoned, steady as always. Opening my front door, I was greeted by the old, faithful scent of Murphy oil soap, tomato plants from the back patio, and the faint, ever-welcoming dust of the books lining my dining room. My house was unchanged by the dramas of the evening. It simply received me, exactly as I was. For a long moment I stood, breathing it in, letting the safety and rightness of this place fill me until my heartbeat calmed. On the kitchen table rested the blue folder from Patricia, left unopened during my brief absence. I set my purse down beside it, then reached for the vase of daisies by the window. Their bright faces seemed to nod at me in simple respect. I placed one by the sink for tomorrow's breakfast and smiled, thinking how even the smallest act, the buying of your own bouquet, can be an act of agency, a gentle declaration that beauty still belongs to you. My heart wandered to the memories Robert had left imprinted on these rooms. His boots by the back door, Sunday papers folded neatly on the table, the echo of his laugh when Daniel came thundering in from Little League, tearing through the house like a summer storm. All that I have built here has been laid brick by brick, with love not only for others, but also quietly, persistently, for myself. It's true what I declared at the dinner table. This house is more than wood and paint and mortgage. It is the living testament to a life spent not just in service of others, but anchored by my own hand upon the wheel. I boiled water for tea, a bedtime ritual now as constant as the stars above, and set my Red Sox mug, chip and all, within reach. The habit steadied me, comforted me. I thought again about what it had cost to gentle my voice into steel, to raise my head and meet Kayla's eyes across that linen-draped battlefield. It has always been easier to smooth things over, to keep peace for the sake of not causing waves. But I am older now, and the peace of resignation is not worth the price of my dignity. Lila's words echoed from memory. Don't let anyone revise your story without your say. Tonight, I took the pen back. Tonight, the next chapter belongs to me. I sipped my tea, then opened the blue folder. Each page, with its precise legal language and careful signatures, glimmered with hard-won autonomy. I traced the line with my finger. My authorization, my agents, my wishes, etched clearly, not to wound or exclude, but to assert a truth so fundamental and so often overlooked. I am still here. The resolution of that dinner did not come with easy joy or triumphant music. Instead, it came as a hard-won peace, the settling of dust after the necessary quake. Daniel's gaze, conflicted but soft with the recognition that perhaps he had misunderstood my silence, lingered with me, as did Kayla's startled silence. Yet something indefinable had shifted in that room. The knowledge that I would no longer be gently overridden, no longer handed forms like a child given crayons at a grown-up restaurant. I thought of Daniel, how much he is like his father, shoulders bent by the weight of wanting to make all things right. I thought of Kayla, formidable in her competence, not cruel, but blinded by the need for control, by her own anxieties about what the future might bring. I would no more wish my son to be caught between us than I would wish my grandchildren to see love twisted into duty, duty into erasure. We are a family. Imperfect, intertwined, sometimes bristling, sometimes embracing, but bound together all the same by a web built over years of birthdays, illnesses, Sunday dinners, forgivenesses, spoken and unspoken. The true victory tonight is not that I won, but that I reclaimed my place at the table, that I reminded those I love that a woman's voice does not diminish with age, but deepens, gathers resonance, asserts its place. Much later, Tucked into bed beneath the quilt my mother sewed in her own 60s, I stared through the night-dark window at the fairy lights twining across my porch railing. My symbol, the little gold cross, rested on my nightstand, its presence a comfort. Its shine, though muted in the shadows, reflected something new, not the compliance or quiet of old age, but an unbroken thread of selfhood. One day, perhaps, Kayla and I will meet that truth together with easier words and more laughter. For now, a new balance has been struck. In the weeks that followed, a pattern gently emerged. Daniel called more often, not always with an apology, but with a new deference, asking, "How are you?" with a pause that allowed for a real answer. He even let the silences bloom between us as he used to, resisting the urge to fill them with action. Kayla, for her part, kept her distance. She didn't bring more papers, nor did she lavish forced affection at the next family lunch. I sensed her recalculating, wondering perhaps for the first time what it would mean to have me as a partner rather than a responsibility. There were, of course, small frictions, a missed text, a cool voice message, the faint tremor of power being redistributed. But the ground under me felt solid. The air in my kitchen was mine to command. The house that witnessed my marriage, my motherhood, my grief, now bore witness to my quiet reclamation. I planted new basil in the window box, its scent bursting into the kitchen every time I opened the pane. And that small gold cross hung with a new weight around my neck on the ordinary days, a private oath, a promise kept not only to my son, but to who I am. When Lily and Matthew came to bake brownies or do crafts, I told them stories of their grandfather and of myself as a young woman, lively, stubborn, delighted by the world. Daniel, sitting at the table with a mug of my too-strong coffee, smiled as I recounted tales he must have heard 100 times. "You never did like being told what to do, Mom," he offered, with more admiration than irritation. I squeezed his hand. "It's called knowing your own heart, Daniel," I replied. As summer deepened and the conflict faded into the flow of family routine, I recognized in myself a lightness, a release. Yes, there will be changes ahead. Yes, there will be times when help must be requested, when age will ask of me another sort of humility. But those will be my choices, not imposed, not handed down under the mantle of care, but accepted freely, as fits the arc of a well-loved, fully lived story. One morning, as I watered the basil, a breeze from the window fluttered the pages of my notebook, where I had started to record my memories, recipes, stories, the kinds of tips you only learn by living. Lila, ever the teacher, encouraged this project. I wrote in a clear, steady script, "Respect does not come with an expiration date." I underlined it twice, letting the words settle into the page like roots. If a grandchild reads them someday and pauses, understanding in some small way how tradition and independence can be threads of the same tapestry, I will have done well. The gold cross, my object symbolo, the tangible memory of a long-ago day when a little boy's hands wrapped a chain with pride and love, reminds me that the truest gifts are not possessions, but the courage to stand in your own light, to claim your own seat, to speak when speaking is the hardest thing. Like the basil on my windowsill, I have bent toward the sun again and again, savoring every patch of warmth, refusing to grow invisible in my own home. Through all the hard conversations, silences, and necessary fences drawn, I have discovered a piece I feared was lost to me. My home is still my castle. My name still rests on the mailbox and the deeds. My story is mine, not just in the telling, but in the living. To everyone who has ever felt pushed to the margins, handed papers they did not ask for, or found themselves watching their own life being diagrammed by others, sit tall, lift your chin, find the words, and claim your space. Let your loved ones learn, even if slowly, that love is never about managing or diminishing, but always about honoring, consulting, and listening. So here I am, 68 years old, with hands strong from years of work and heart steady from seasons of joy and loss, seated by choice and not by permission at my own table. The candlelight still flickers through the window. The basil still grows green and bold. The gold cross rests by my heart. I am more myself than I have ever been. If this story touched you, or reminded you of someone you love, if you ever found your own voice in the quiet of a kitchen or the hum of a family dinner, I hope you'll share your thoughts below. Leave a comment, subscribe, and give a like. Let's fill this space with stories of strength, love, and what it means to be truly seen. We are each more than a line on a page. We are the whole hard-won story.